I'm going to narrate a roll between myself and my student Karen. We did this a few months ago. I'm going to point out a few things about rolling with a significantly smaller, less experienced training partner. A quick review of how to finish a golf swing takedown. Karen pressure passes, advances to full mount. I start to bridge, Karen sprawls into low mount. I trap one leg into half guard, get a butterfly hook. Get 2 butterfly hooks, sit up. And I start to sweep. Karen underhooks my leg. Smart move. Manages to stabilize and stand, but leaves a foot behind. I stand up. Karen gets a push-pull sweep and ends up on top in my half guard. She leaves herself a little unstable, so I'm able to roll on top. Karen arm drags and goes for the elevator sweep, moving into side control. She frames on my right hip with her right arm, hooking around my head, moving to a north-south position. Very stable position for a smaller fighter fighting a larger fighter, but lets her legs get dangerously close to mine, allowing me to get a reversal and get back up on top. Karen hip escapes back into the open guard, attempting the push-pull sweep again, and moves back to side control. I don't know why she fed her leg right between mine right there, giving me half guard again. But she manages to stabilize. Now I'm looping my foot in her belt right here. This is one thing belts are actually good for. You can use them to perform certain techniques. Karen starts to pass. I start to Granby roll, attempting to re-guard. Karen keeps the pressure on. Move back to a turtle position, posture up. Karen attempts to control my leg, getting a reversal. Back into side control. And I sit up back into the turtle position. Controlling her hips. Karen keeps moving her hips, hip escaping back to guard. An arm drag. And she clears the shoulder. Attempting a triangle choke. I posture. Karen pulls the arm across the body. Attempts to make some adjustments to make the triangle tighter. I would like to see her get a angle moving over to her right side, but she's got tight control of the head there, so I'll give her the tap. Karen removes that pesky belt. Now the problem with the takedown attempt right there was no impact step, and that is so crucial, especially against a larger, heavier, stronger opponent. So I was able to simply pull the leg out from under her, but that was a nice get up, nice reversal. And Karen's back into side control. But she fed me her leg again right into half guard. Something we addressed afterward when we watched this video. I always review these videos with my students. My focus when I roll with my students is to teach them. It's not to beat them or make them tap out. It's to teach them. Now there's a huge size and strength and experience differential here. And was able to get behind Karen. She made a bit of a careless mistake there. She is working to get her hips lower than mine, which is absolutely necessary when escaping back mount. But I've got control of her lapel, and I am attempting to transition to a bow and arrow choke since she has lowered herself too low, so a rear naked choke is no longer an option. And I move back into mount. Karen keeps moving her hips, gets a reversal. It's very important to keep moving to prevent your opponent from stabilizing. That doesn't mean spazzing out. Absolutely not. And again, I transition to the back. Get control of that lapel again. Trying another attempt at the bow and arrow choke right here, something which Karen had been practicing, so I want her to see this technique in action. And there it is. I always like to use the techniques that I'm teaching my students when I grapple with them or when I spar with them. And a single leg, but again, she left a leg behind but managed to clear the half guard back into side control. Karen moving to that north-south position. Controlling the arm, working toward a Kimura. Now, the Kimura is a bit of a strongman's technique. It's very difficult to break somebody's grip. Notice my hands are tightly together right here if you are smaller and weaker. So Karen does something really smart right here. She'll take her left elbow and start digging it deeply into my floating ribs, right between the ribs in that soft stuff. This can encourage people to open up that grip almost involuntarily. You notice my grip opened briefly, but I pulled it back together. Now she uses her body weight to straighten out my arm and switch to the arm bar, which takes considerably less strength since you have the entire body weight working for you. Again, Karen with the golf leg, or the golf swing single leg finish, transitions to full mount. It's important to recognize full mount is two different positions, low mount and high mount. Karen starts to climb the body to a high mount position. But as I attempt to recover half guard, Karen clears into a quarter guard, getting the samurai roll right there. That's what Eddie Bravo calls it, straight into the rear naked choke. It's an awesome move using that twister roll. And another single leg. I've got a butterfly hook, which allows me to sit back up using my underhook, keeping my head in front of me so that I can't be pushed onto my back, which Karen is trying to do right here. But she gets my head behind me, so she's able to get a leg lace pass right here and back into full mount. Again, my goal when I roll with my students is not to crush them, but to teach them. With somebody as new and as small as Karen, yeah, I could squish her. I absolutely could. But again, that's not my goal, because all that teaches her is fear, essentially. I want my students to understand technique. So right there I used a cross-side pass, fundamental technique, which Karen knows, and I want her to master. Switch to this saddle position where I threaten Karen with a straight ankle lock. And she's using her free foot to attempt to free the threatened one. And now we're in a 50-50 guard type position. Karen's taking this opportunity to attempt a straight ankle lock of her own. And there it is. And I shoot in for a low ankle pick. Karen recovers guard and almost went for a triangle choke there, but decided against it at the last moment. Playing spider guard a little bit here. Now she could easily transition to a triangle choke here, but she has never actually practiced this technique before. This is the first time I've even seen her attempt a spider guard before. So she pulls out of the spider guard in favor of attacking the legs. When in doubt, be the guy on top. Back into that 50-50 guard. She abandons it in favor of being on top. And I switch to an inverted guard. Hit a sweep. And then attack a toe hold. Again, I'm using techniques that Karen is familiar with, as opposed to trying new stuff. At this point, I had not taught her heel hooks. So in spite of the fact that there are many opportunities for heel hooks to happen, I am not going to use them. And we square up again. And Karen going for a low single, using her body weight to straighten out my knee. Working toward a guard pass here. And she is successfully, I don't know why she fed her foot back in there. But again, that's a habit that we worked on breaking afterward. Watching this video right here, I'm setting up a no-hands knee bar, which is a great submission to do while guard passing. If your opponent is stubborn about giving up half guard, climb down the body. That no-hands knee bar is gold. Again, Karen with a golf swing finish. Stabilizing in side control. Passing into full mount. Now she made a fundamental mistake there with that armbar attempt, which is why this is not going to work. She did not pin my head with her leg before falling back. It's a common beginner mistake. Again, Karen's only been training for a few months, in spite of making fantastic progress for the little time that she's put into jiu-jitsu. But yeah, that's a fundamental mistake. If you do not pin the head before you go back, your opponent is most likely going to escape that armbar. You won't have control over him. So I'm back in the guard, climbing the body. Karen stacking a little bit. I've got sleeve control. Switch to the X guard right here, and sweep. And I frame against the hip, frame against the head, move to a north-south position, a technique that I have tried to reinforce in Karen a lot, because it is again, one of the best control positions for a smaller person fighting a larger person. I'm attempting a shoulder lock right here, classic judo technique, not very common in Brazilian jiu-jitsu, but Karen is small and wiggly, manages to get her arm free. Being smaller is not always a disadvantage, because smaller limbs in many ways are harder to control. I mean, they're like half my size, so they tend to wiggle out of these spaces that a larger opponent would not. So I hit that twister roll, trying for the twister here again. And again, this is a great example of how a smaller fighter is able to exploit the spaces. And that's the end of the round. We're going to do 2 more. These are long rounds, 15 minutes, 10 minutes, and 10 minutes. So Karen has fantastic endurance. A lot of grapplers, especially when they start out, after 5 minutes, they're done, they're toast. Sit straight down into an arm bar. Just reminding Karen to keep those elbows a little bit bent, keep the hands on the inside, elbows close to the body. If you start reaching for things, that becomes dangerous. That's true in jiu-jitsu, it's true in striking. And great hip escape, back to butterfly guard right there. Karen working open guard, trying to find that underhook. I stand. Karen goes back to that push-pull sweep, which puts us into a saddle position. I go for a straight ankle lock. Karen again capitalizes on those tiny spaces, getting those tiny feet out. And that's a great position for a heel hook, but again, not going to do that on Karen, not yet, not till she knows it. And we stand back up. Sleeve control right here. Got 2-on-1, switch to a lapel grab, switch to inverted guard, spin out of it, grab a foot, get behind Karen, get the takedown, switch back to the saddle position. Again, awesome position for a heel hook, but not going to do it. Instead, I'm going to focus on the straight ankle locks, which Karen does know. And Karen attempts a straight ankle lock of her own. Let's see if she can finish. She's rolling on her side to pin my left hip to the floor, hiding her feet so that I can't counterattack them, and there is the tap. It's very important to hide your feet when attempting a straight ankle lock. The belt comes off. That's how you know she's serious. Nice collar drag right there to a single leg. Playing my open guard. I want that belt. A belt is a great handle to grab. So when your jiu-jitsu training partner takes their belt off, always kind of bugs me a little bit. Anyway, I hit the elevator sweep. And get that twister roll. Go for a calf crank. Might look like fancy advanced jiu-jitsu for a lot of white belts out there, but you know, it's a simple transition. It's not difficult to learn. It looks cool anytime you do anything that's spinny, rolly, that kind of thing. People think, oh, that's too advanced, that would never work. Except it totally does. What you invest your time toward is what works. What you work at is what works. Karen doing an awesome job at applying pressure to the upper body, bringing her feet toward my head and away from my feet. So even though she only weighs about 50 kilos, she's able to put all of those 50 kilos on my upper chest, upper shoulders, and head. So again, she's attacking the arm, trying for the Kimura, transition to the arm bar. Let's see if she can break that grip, straighten out the arms. Nice shaky leg finish. You'll notice the leg she had over my chin, started shaking that down. It's a great way to get somebody to open their grip. And awesome entry on that single leg, great impact step, but I was able to make a bit of an angle, get behind her. I've got one hook in. Switching to a banana split here. Now, Karen can do the splits. The banana split, when done properly, is not about making your opponent do the splits. It is about torsion on the hips. So notice I'm twisting one leg one way and the other leg in the opposite direction. So you can make a completely flexible person tap to the banana split if your torsion is correct. And again, Karen shoots, but yeah, she corrected her mistake of very little impact by changing her angle and lifting my leg from behind. I invert here. And this is a very sport-specific jiu-jitsu strategy to invert like this. Obviously, you're not going to do this in a street fight. You'll just get punched in the face. Notice my head is right out there. But in the context of sport jiu-jitsu, nothing wrong with that. If it gives you the result you want, that's the right way. Back into half guard. Karen pummeling for her grips. Climbing the body a little bit. Trying to turn that half guard into a quarter guard, and she escapes into side control. Get a lot of pressure on the upper body here. She's trying to separate my arm. Moves into a high mount. She's trying for an S mount, although she did not have the right angle. She's kind of floating above me right here. So she falls back. My head was not controlled at all. So that was an easy reversal. But she manages to clear the shoulder, pull my posture down using her hips, the strongest muscles in her body against a weaker muscle group in mine. I sit back. This is a simple escape from a triangle choke. Sit back, put the feet in the armpits, posture up. This can keep your posture unbroken against a tremendous amount of force. That puts us back into a 50-50 guard position. And Karen goes for a single underhook pass. And I do a half Granby into a turtle position, another Granby attempting to re-guard. Karen circumvents the guard. I Granby again. Karen follows. And another Granby roll. Hooking the inside of her leg. Karen applying pressure. Back into side control. I bridge, elevating my hips to create some space to get a knee underneath. Karen wisely moves her legs toward my head to shut down my escape, and moves back into full mount. Karen's focusing on attacking my left arm, but she sits back here, putting her weight on the mat, quickly correcting the mistake, getting back on top. And this time she goes for the armbar, pinning my head to the ground before falling back, so she's able to straighten out the arm. Back up on the feet again. I know a lot of jiu-jitsu schools start their rules from the ground. I think that is a huge disservice because that is not how fights happen. That is not how jiu-jitsu tournaments happen. And an ogoshi hip throw, people often ask, what do you think of judo, Ramsey? And I think judo is awesome. Judo is the basis of Brazilian jiu-jitsu. It's where it came from. And if you don't know your basic judo techniques, inverted guard right here, trapping the arm. If you don't know your basic judo techniques and you call yourself a jiu-jitsu practitioner, that's a huge disservice to yourself. So at the very least, spend some time on the fundamentals of judo if you practice Brazilian jiu-jitsu. And Karen would do this is a perfect position for an X pass, but she does not know that technique right now, but that would have been an amazing pass right there. But again, she's doing a great job of controlling the hips, keeping pressure on, stacking, controlling the space. So even with a limited number of techniques, Karen has a very, very high fight IQ. Notice as she gets around the back, she traps my right arm with her leg. Taking that out of play, I'm not able to hand fight, not able to fight off this rear naked choke right here. Legs are generally stronger than arms, even if you are a smaller, weaker person, so you can use your legs to trap the arms from that back mount position to your advantage. Last round, last 10 minutes. 2-on-1. To grabbing the leg, not enough impact on that step, so Karen switches to a guard pull. Attempting to work her open guard. Trying for a sweep right here. Gets that push-pull. Very fundamental, basic technique. In my half guard, working to sprawl her leg. Using her other leg as a crowbar. Passing the half guard into side control. Underhooking my far side arm. And again, there's a ton of pressure on top here, so she transitions to an arm lock. Now right here, this is, if you look really close at the fingers, she is controlling my fingers, so I'm not able to grip my hands together to fight that arm bar, which is something I'd never really thought about until this moment we reviewed the footage, and after this grappling match, that's something I started adding into my repertoire. It's one of the most annoying things. You get in that spiderweb position, your opponent clasps their hands together, and you got to do all these tricks to break that grip. But why not nip that in the bud, like Karen did right there, and just grab the fingers? It's not illegal. It's not small joint manipulation. You're holding all 4 fingers, and your opponent is not able to clasp their hands together. Smart, smart thinking. Very high fight IQ on this girl. Everybody's a book. Everybody has something to teach you. And there's so much value in allowing new students to test out this new stuff that they're learning. A lot of times you put them against brand new students, and they'll just try to crush each other. And that is an important experience. You need to have all these different types of experiences. Right here, this is kind of a laboratory to experiment. Karen into that S-mount, into the arm bar. Slick transition there. And it makes such a huge difference when I allow my students to get repetitions against different levels of resistance of the techniques that are high percentage. When I see Karen grapple against other girls her own size, man, it is a world of difference. She has developed this killer instinct, this attack mentality, and since she's been given ample opportunities to troubleshoot with positions like this, to work her defense, she has advanced very, very quickly. Nice shoulder pressure into the mat, getting out of that armbar attempt. Back into full mount. Karen climbs the body. But since her hips were right over my hips and she sat up, she was very easy to roll off. When you get full mount, if you sit up, make sure you're sitting on your opponent's chest, close to their armpits, rather than on the hips. Otherwise, you will be very unstable. So Karen is working for a triangle choke right here. She's got my arm across the center line, control of the head, and there's the tap. Like many new students, when Karen first learned the triangle choke, her response was, "This is impossible. I'm too small. My legs are too short." But no, there are so many ways to get around that. So we're back into side control. This time I'm on top. Karen is working to re-guard. I'm framing on her outside hip there. Make that an impossibility. I'm attempting to get a crucifix position here, but her tiny little arms are easy to slip out from between the legs. Even though my legs are much bigger and stronger, it's very difficult to control small limbs with your legs. That's one of the reasons the omoplata is such a low percentage submission. It's a fantastic transitional technique, but a very low percentage submission, especially in mixed martial arts and no-gi grappling, where there's much less friction. Karen attempting a sweep from open guard here. And I stabilize. Sit right down on the thighs. This is an awesome guard pass. I'll use this against everybody. And a cartwheel, but no control over my opponent, so Karen was easily able to get back to the center. Now here I'm doing a cross-side straight ankle lock. If you're not familiar with that technique, it starts like a cross-side pass. However, you've got control of the ankle, squeeze their leg between yours, and drive your hips straight down, head to the floor. It's legal in all forms of submission grappling tournaments, including IBJJF. It is a straight ankle lock, but not this one, the figure four toe hold. But that's such a useful technique, and it's a great equalizer for a smaller fighter fighting a larger fighter, attacking the toe hold, because all it requires is that you have control of the foot. And even if you're fighting the biggest muscle man in the world, well, their foot is going to have a whole lot less strength and ability to resist you than, say, their torso or their arm or their whole leg. So it's often much easier to attack feet, which is something I'm trying to hammer home here. And Karen working her spider guard. And she figures out that transition to a triangle choke attempt, which is great to see because I did not teach her this transition. Didn't even practice spider guard with her. It is something she's figured out independently, so I want to see her develop that more. Giving her chances to develop these strategies. Again, very high fight IQ on this girl. And a lot of hand fighting in this moment. I get the underhook. Hit the Ogoshi hip throw again. Karen reguards. She's got my sleeve. Working for that spider guard transition again. I underhook her leg, but I don't have my shoulder deep enough under there for an underhook pass. So I work to amend that. There we go, there's the single underhook pass. Back into full mount. Karen turns to her side. And gives up the back in her process. So she's blocking my foot so I can't trap her arm, that thing that she did to me previously. She's learning, very adaptable, this one. If you want to know how to counter a technique, learn that technique. It's a very simple lesson there. People always say, how do you fight a wrestler? Well, you learn how to wrestle. How do you counter a jiu-jitsu guy? You learn jiu-jitsu. How do you fight a boxer? You learn how to box. Very, very simple things. There's an Americana, the key lock on my left arm right there. Fundamental technique every beginner should know. Karen shoots for a single leg again. And I invert. And that's the end of the round. All right, thanks for watching. Now get out there and train.